Welcome to this episode of HR and Cocktails. Today I have with me Amber Trail. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Before we get started with introductions, our topic today is about employee engagement and ways that small employers can engage their employees. But if you're new to the podcast, HR and Cocktails is a podcast about all things HR, whether it is talking about the soft skills, also known as the durable skills, or the skills that people need to do their job. We do everything HR. Amber, you've visited us before here, but now your role is a little bit different. So tell our listeners about your new role.
So I am actually the managing consultant with Prescott HR, and I am so excited because not only do I get to work with clients, an amazing leadership team, but I also get to work with the consultants directly. So this is a new role for me, and I absolutely love it.
Yes, and I am so excited to have you on the team. It's been awesome and amazing. So thank you so much. So tell our listeners a little bit about your role at Prescott HR and what Prescott HR is.
Yeah, so Prescott HR, we are all things HR for small businesses. It's typically if you do not have an HR presence or you have someone who is trying to do HR but is not necessarily, an expert in that role, we help out our clients with all things HR. And my role is to help with the clients. I have my own clients too, but also with the consultants. So we have several consultants that, if they need help, if they need resources or tools or tips, that is my role into helping them get what they need. And Prescott HR has been wonderful to work with so far. I'm so excited because everybody is very passionate, not only about HR, but what they do as well and helping. We are all we love to help. And I think as an HR professional, that is important. You need to love to help in order to be really good in HR.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. And I'm very excited, very, very excited. So our topic today is engagement and tips for small employers to engage their workforce. So before we kind of start, what is engagement? What does that mean? I mean, it's been the term du jour for a while, right? But what does it really mean?
So engagement to me is keeping your workforce fully aware, having them being able to give feedback, being not a number, a human being. And engagement is when they're actively giving feedback. They're actively being a part of the team or the organization. So they feel that they are helping give back and helping grow the organization. So it's not like you're growing it, but you don't really know the reason. You're growing it and you're engaged in helping grow it because their success is also your success.
Right. And so what is the benefit of having an engaged workforce?
Number one, you're going to keep your employees typically, which is great because turnover costs are very high. But having an engaged workforce, you find new ideas within your current workforce. You retain your top talent. You can find new positions. Growth is huge because at that point, you may think, well, I don't know how I'm going to get to the next level. But utilize your workforce because when they're engaged, they're willing to give you everything that they've got.
Yeah, exactly. And when people are engaged and they see how the work that they're doing moves the mission and helps the organization, they tend to be more willing to do what they need to do to get that job done.
Right.
So, we talked, you just mentioned the benefits of employee engagement, but what's the cost of not having an engaged workforce?
You are going to spend a lot of money if you do not have an engaged workforce, and meaning you lose your top talent. You are then having to backfill. And when you're recruiting, then you're recruiting just to fill a spot. You're not able to find a quality hire because you're now, hurrying up to fill that position so that you can get somebody to fill whatever role it might be. And you could lose the trust and respect of your other workforce because they see other people leaving and they're like, well, why is everyone leaving? This doesn't feel okay to me. And then you have people who are showing up late. They're taking all their PTO or sick leave. They're just not engaged in what they're doing. And let's say they're client facing or customer facing. Then the customers are then going to feel that energy from those employees that are just like, I'm here for a paycheck. You don't want that.
Right, exactly. You don't want people that are just there for a paycheck. So how do small employers even know if people are engaged? I know you mentioned, people using their PTO or, coming to work late, kind of the telltale signs, but, everyone doesn't present that way. There were people who were quiet quitting, and there was a quiet something else. I can't remember what it was. So everyone's way that they show up as engaged or not engaged, or I guess disengaged, looks different. So how does an employer know, and particularly a small employer that kind of needs everyone to be all hands on deck?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is you're going to see a lot of pushback. If you ask an employee to do a task, they're going to push back. Obviously they may not show up on time. They may not feel like this is not important to me. It's just for you. So why am I doing it? I think the biggest thing is their attitudes. How are they showing up? If they're showing up with kind of an attitude and not like, let's go get this done, we're a team, then that is showing that they are disengaged. They're not wanting to show up for the organization or their other team members. They're going to start talking badly about the owner or the organization itself, and word is going to start getting out to then clients or customers. And it's detrimental to a business, but I think that the biggest thing is, starting to notice the little signs, which could be the attitudes. It could be, how they respond to you or their supervisor. And it could also be, are they just not showing up on time? It's really in their performance. What does their performance look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But before we go any further, I think it's time for a cocktail.
I agree.
All right. What cocktail would you like today?
A mojito.
A mojito. All right. Coming up. Our guest Amber selected a mojito for her drink. Amber, why'd you pick a mojito?
A mojito is so light and refreshing to drink all year long.
It is. I love it. And I love mint. I grow mint. You grow mint, right?
I do.
Yeah. So we're going to start with a little bit of rum. So we're going to do 3 parts rum so that we can get everything started. So it's white rum. So we're going to, and actually I have to double it because there's 2 of us here. So don't, unless you want to double, you don't have to do this many like we are.
And white rum is so smooth.
It is. So take it easy because it'll catch up on you. It will. So we have our white rum, and then we're going to squeeze some fresh lime juice. Some people like to just use that other lime stuff and the little lime thing, and I'm like, no, I really want some fresh lime. So we're going to squeeze our lime juice in here and try not to knock it over. That would not be awesome. I like to turn mine over and out as much juice out of it as I or get as much juice out of it as I can. We're going to do the other half because we have 2 parts. Make sure we have plenty of lime juice to make it yummy, and sprayed lime all over you. That's awesome as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get some mint. Now, I love mint. I like a lot of mint in mine. So we're just going to put some mint leaves directly in here and tear them off of the stem because the stem is not good.
Yeah, we don't want
Nope. And so we'll just put a bunch of leaves in here, the good ones, the ones that fall off. Probably aren't that good. I'm going to put a few more in here, make sure we have it nice and minty. And then we're going to take our muddler, which is this, and we're just going to muddle our mint down in there just to get the mint oil and just all of the yummy mint into our drink. So we'll do that a few times. And then we're going to put some ice into our shaker. Because we have juice, we like to have, sorry, I'm making a bunch of noise, sorry. We like to have, you shake when you use juice so that it can mix well. We'll put some ice in it. I will try my best not to shake too loud for you, but we want to get it nice and shaken for you. Get it nice and shaken for you. All right, I think that's pretty good. I would recommend to shake it longer, but I didn't want to make it too loud. So we will input. Cool. And then we're gonna top it with some, actually, we forgot our simple syrup. So we'll just put a little bit in here and stir it up with our straw. So that was my fault. I totally forgot to put the simple syrup in, but you should put it into your shaker, but it'll still work.
Okay.
So we'll mix it with our straws, and then we'll top it with some simple syrup, and we'll garnish it, and you won't even know we didn't do it correctly the first time. So we'll top it with some soda. All right.
See how light and refreshing that was?
I know. And then we will put our garnish on and make it look beautiful. And then we have our mojito. All right, Amber, we have our mojitos. Cheers. Yay.
Still good.
Yes. All right, awesome. Okay, well, we were talking about the way that, disengaged employees can show up in the workplace. When people are not engaged, a lot of times it's, they've checked out, and sometimes it's because they don't really know what their role is.
Right.
They don't really know where they're supposed to be in the organization or how what they do fits in. So is there a role that feedback plays into employee engagement? And if so, what does that look like?
Feedback is huge for employee engagement, and it's not only for the employee to know like how they're doing or what they can improve on. It's understanding what the big picture is. I have an example that once upon a time, someone told me that someone was asked. There was a construction site, and someone was asked to go dig a hole right in this specific spot. And so they did it, but they were really irritated that they were asked to dig a hole in this spot. Well, come to find out, a supervisor came over and he engaged with the employee, and the employee is like, I just don't understand why I'm doing this. And he said, it was about a bridge. And he's like, look at the big picture. You are building this piece of this bridge. And then the employee was like, okay, you almost need to give the feedback to the employee. This is why we're doing it. It's a big picture. It's the vision, because I think when you give transparency and you give that, the positives, and also like, hey, this is how we need to improve, you're going to get more engagement back from your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of the story that I heard about when President Kennedy went to visit the Space Center when the shuttle was going to launch, and he asked a gentleman who was a janitor, effectively, what his role was. Mm-hmm. And he said, my job is to put a man on the moon, mm-hmm. right? So everyone in that building knew what the mission was, and they knew why they were there, exactly. right? So he didn't say, I'm a janitor. He said, I'm here to put a man on the moon, because mm-hmm. everyone was there for the same mission. And I think that type of laser focus, but that comes from leadership, right?
It does.
Leadership has to drive that vision. Leadership has to push the mission and really help people to understand what it is and how what they do ties into it. So just like the man with the bridge, if he had been told that story, been given that piece of information mm-hmm. before, that would have been a game changer exactly. for him, because he would, the pushback, like you said, probably the time that it took him to do it and all of those things, all of that would have been reduced, which then brings up the point of productivity, mm-hmm. right? Because we lose time when people are asking questions and questioning things, right. When we can, as leaders or managers or HR, give them the information that they need so they can have context.
Right.
So they can just understand, like, I'm not here just telling you to just do random tasks mm-hmm. because I don't have anything else to do today.
Right.
Like, there's a reason why these things need to be done, right?
Yes. And it really goes back to transparency. I think the more transparent you are with your workforce, all of the leadership needs to be 100% on board with what the vision and the mission is. But when it trickles down to your workforce and you're very transparent about it, you gain that respect and trust, and then they're going to be more engaged because they can see their part in the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so we talked about feedback. What about culture, right? How does culture impact how people are engaged or not?
It's 100%. Everything is about the culture. And you said it earlier, it is about starting from the top down. Leadership has to be 100% devoted to the culture of the workforce, and they set the tone. If one leader has, a bad attitude or they don't believe in something, then it trickles down. So having a great company culture starts from the top, and the employees want to see, hey, you know what? I saw my manager over here doing exactly what I'm doing because they're helping out. They saw that we needed help, and they're willing to help out, not just delegate, not just do this. They're jumping in and helping. And that sets the tone for culture because it's hey, you know what? We're a team. Let's get this done. Here's what we're going to do. And a culture is huge because if you do not have a good company culture, you are going to lose your workforce. You are going to have disengaged employees, and then you're going to lose your top talent. You do not want to lose your top talent.
Yeah. And again, there's so many reasons why you want to keep your top talent. You don't want to recruit. It's a difficult market.
Right.
People lose morale. It's a variety of things. But I don't think that a lot of organizations fully understand what culture actually means, right? What is a culture? What is that?
Culture to me is like the environment. So kind of like when you're home, you set the tone for your home, whether it's, a really clean kitchen or, a really messy kitchen, whatever it might be, that's kind of setting the tone. It's setting the environment. So a culture is what do you want people to feel when you walk in the door? So do they feel comfortable when they walk in? Do they feel they can trust you? No one's going to buy something from you if they don't feel like they can trust you. So a culture is truly creating an environment that is a safe space, a place where they can trust and respect, and they know that they're going to be taken care of or they're going to get the best service possible. So culture is really important in that it sets that tone of your entire organization. And if it's a bad culture, you're going to lose customers, you're going to lose clients, you're going to lose your employees. You might even lose your leadership team, but it's really setting those standards and that tone for the entire organization.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that having a culture where open communication and feedback is not only accepted but expected is really, really good. Because when you are in a culture of fear, and I like your analogy to, a home, when you have, someone that grows up in a home that's not emotionally safe, it impacts everything about them.
It does.
And so similarly in the workplace, if it's not an emotionally safe place to work, people can't bring their whole self. They can't do their best work when it's not safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's really important to make sure that we are creating that type of environment that people feel like I can give feedback, I can do, I can say what needs to be said without fear of, I'm going to lose my job because I told my boss like, hey, I have an idea or I don't think this thing's working. And I think that it's important for managers to also understand that feedback is a two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just manager to employee.
Right.
It comes
Both
back.
ways.
Like you have to be open to receiving that feedback. We get feedback sometimes from our listeners that, HR is not a safe space. What do you say about that and how, maybe shifting that perception may help people feel safer and therefore increase engagement?
My first question to them is, I've heard it many times too, is why not? Why do you feel it like it's not a safe space? And it's typically because of something that has happened or some traumatic experience or, they know someone who has had a bad experience with an HR professional, which is unfortunate. But HR is truly there to support you as an employee and also the organization. And it is such a hard position to have because you not only need, obviously the organization pays you, but if you are a true HR professional that, you really want the best for everyone, and legally we have to do what we have to do, but to provide that support for employees. And I think that HR is there to listen. We have 2 ears. We need to listen, but also provide guidance and feedback. And sometimes it may not be the feedback that everyone wants to hear, but we are there to truly support employees and the employer. And we're kind of like the middle, moderator, whatever you'd call it, but it's mediator.
Yes.
But you need to listen to both sides, and I feel like HR does a really good job of that because we need to obviously make sure that the mission and the vision of the organization is being kept and upheld, but the employees, they may have family issues, they may have something that happens, and we need to be sure that we are there to support them and provide them with what they need because we're not two separate people. We have our personal lives and our work lives, but there's no way to separate them. So how do we support them to help them be as, productive as possible or as motivated as possible at work when something else is going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, for those that are, listening, I think that, understanding that HR really is advice and counsel. It is where both sides, both the business and the employees come, and we provide advice and counsel to help navigate risk.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that people have had bad experiences with an HR person, but all HR people are not the same.
Right.
And when you have someone who is truly an HR professional, which is different than someone who has a job in the human resources department, then you will see that there is a difference in how things are handled. And then again, when human resources is helping to maintain, along with leadership, the culture and creating a culture that is one that people can thrive in, it drives engagement.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about engaging employees, engagement starts on day one, right? Which means their onboarding process. It means all of those things, right? So talk about how employees get started with engagement on day one. What does that look like, and how do we create that coming in the door?
I will tell you the first thing not to do is to hand them a company handbook and say, here you go. Have a great first day.
Right.
I've been given that so many times.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is knowing that your supervisor, your manager is there for you. Like, hey, I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. That's the first most important thing. Other than have a space set up for them, have their emails ready to go, have all of their software ready, and walk through that process. This is what we use this for. This is what we use this for. Obviously, doing their onboarding paperwork. If they can do it beforehand, that's fantastic. But introducing them to the systems because they're going to be needing that the most. But introducing them to their colleagues, introducing them to the other leadership, whoever they may be working with the most, just introducing them so they have like a warm welcome. I think the biggest thing when you walk in as a new person is going to be, you want to feel welcomed. You want to feel, open arms, like welcome into the company. But you can only do that if they feel, okay, my email's ready. My desk is set up. All these systems are ready. And it doesn't even have to be a perfect onboarding process. I think as long as you make the effort to try and make the employee feel as welcomed as possible, that sets the tone. Employees know within the first 2 weeks whether they're going to stay at the organization or not.
Yes.
So you really want to set the tone for them. And I think just making sure that you are available for questions and, feedback and, whatever it is, as long as you're available, that will help them as well. The onboarding process is not just one day. It is a long process.
Yep.
And I think that's a misconception, but it's definitely having things ready, being available, and setting them up for success.
Yeah, and I think the making people feel welcome part is important. And I think Amber's trying to make me feel good because I didn't have all her stuff ready on day one, but
But I told you that was okay because you were available.
well, the cobbler's children don't have shoes. So, but yes, I think it's very important. And particularly because, we're talking about small business. So some of those engagement tools, some of those onboarding tools, some of those things that larger organizations have and the, new hire academy and all that stuff, smaller employers don't have that.
Right.
So what you said, like just simple things, just have their logins, have their email, do a welcome email so everyone knows that they've joined the team.
Right.
Some of those, just those little touches, people then can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, wow, I'm joining, this group of people. And, in a smaller organization, sometimes it's harder because you're the new kid on the block with this little group of people and this small group of people that all know each other.
Right.
So it's even more important to go above and beyond and include them,
Right.
make them feel included so that they can jump right in and feel like they're a part of it.
Exactly.
So for small employers, is there any technology that can be used to help with engagement or to help keep individuals engaged?
I know that there are a ton of performance, employee engagement surveys and different platforms that you can use to check in, almost like just check-ins, like every, a 2 weeks, a 30 days, a 60 days, however that may look, just really finding out like, what can we provide you? What are you missing? Are there any tools that we can help you to be more successful? What could we have done to, so that way for the next person as well, what could we have done to help support you more on the onboarding process to just see what the engagement feedback is like. I know there is a ton of software out there and tools that you can use. Honestly, my favorite is just an in-person, hey, how are you doing? And I know a lot of virtual workforces now, it's just, let's jump on a Zoom, let's jump on a phone call. But it's those check-ins that are very important because you can go to that individual. That you can, go to another team member, even if you're not in person. But having those one-to-ones, especially in the first couple weeks, can boost engagement while you're, really starting out in your new position.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I had a thought in my head, but then it went away. I think, it was about the touching base and having the regular communication. What about surveys? What are your thoughts about engagement surveys? I think that a lot of, organizations, they're like, okay, well, can we do an engagement survey? What are your thoughts about that and their effectiveness?
It depends. They have to be meaningful. The feedback has to be utilized, and they cannot be long. The first thing you're going to do is bore the person. So it has to be, if you're going to do an engagement survey, it's great. Don't overdo it. Do it maybe once every 6 months or something very, once a year. But what you do with that feedback is how well those engagement surveys are going to work. So let's say you do an engagement survey, make it short. It cannot be long, but do the engagement survey and then get the feedback and then compile the feedback and find out what you can do and take actionable steps. If you don't do that, those engagement surveys are worthless. It means absolutely nothing. So, make them short, make them not very frequent. I mean, some companies I know do it quarterly. Okay, great. But are you actually doing something with that feedback? So engagement surveys are fantastic as long as you are actually utilizing the feedback you get from them.
Yeah, and I think that's the case with any survey, but definitely with engagement surveys, because if you're asking people, how well they, how do they feel about their role in the organization? What would they like to see more of? How could, we help them to be more engaged? And then we don't do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to make them become less engaged. I think that that's the case. So is there anything else that you think that our listeners need to know about as it relates to engagement?
I think just being open and transparent, it gets a lot of respect and trust back from your employees. Setting that tone is important and not being afraid to go down and do the same work your employees are doing. that sets the tone for how the organization is run, and it does create that more positive culture.
Absolutely. And trust as
Yes.
well. Yeah, absolutely. Amber, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening to this episode of HR and Cocktails.